Trump has just told the World Economic Forum that if they want to sell products in the United States, they must be made in the United States, or you're going to have to pay a tariff. And everyone's going, oh, he's so patriotic, he's the best president we've ever had. Without they're all losing their shit over it and want to have their babies, but they don't realize the truth behind what this actually means. It just means that the cost of living in the States is going to go up. Again, why? Look at it from a manufacturer's point of view. Why would you manufacture something in the United States that you already have infrastructure elsewhere to manufacture? You're going to have to move your infrastructure. You're going to have to pay the American workforce to work for you. They're not cheap. So the price of the product is going to go up anyway if they manufacture in the States. So why not just keep manufacturing where they're manufacturing right now and pay the tariff? They don't mind paying the tariff. Why? Because the price of the tariff goes on the price of the product that they're selling. The American people are going to pay the tariff. But guess who gets to keep the tariff? The parasite class. The American government and the parasite class. They're making money while they're making the common people poorer. This is the age-old story. And when are you going to wake up and see it? That none of these elected leaders, I don't care who it is, whether they're red, whether they're blue, whether they're yellow, whether they're green, what political party they're a part of, they're all part of the same club, the parasitic class, and they will never, ever do anything for you. They only ever do things for themselves. It's time to wake up. Take back your power, take back your sovereignty, and create.
Both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero tariff situation, effectively creating a free trade zone between Europe and North America, and also more freedom of people to move between Europe and North America, if they wish. If they wish to work in Europe or wish to work in America, they should be allowed to do so, in my view.
The higher the tariff, the more likely it is to have them come into the
higher the tariff, the more you're going to put on the value of that piece, those goods, the higher people are going to have to pay in shops.
Ready? The higher the tariff, the more likely it is that the company will come into the United States and build a factory in the United States so it doesn't have to pay the tariff.
That will take many, as you know, that will take many years.
In fact, I'll tell you, you know, there's another theory is that the tariff, you make it so high, so horrible, so obnoxious that they'll come right away. When I do the 10%, 10% is really, first of all, 10%, when you collect it, is hundreds of billions of dollars. The numbers that you're talking, all reducing our deficit. But really, so there's two ways of looking at a tariff. You can do it as a money-making instrument, or you can do it as something to get the companies. Now, if you want the companies to come in, the tariff has to be a lot higher than 10%, because 10% is not enough. Guys, they're not going to do it for 10. But you make a 50% tariff, they're 81% of the cars in South Korea are made in South Korea. 94% of the cars in Japan are made in Japan. Toyota sells 1 million foreign-made automobiles into the United States, and General Motors sells almost none. Ford sells very little. None of our companies are allowed to go into other countries. And I say that friend and foe, and in many cases, the friend is worse than the foe in terms of trade. But such horrendous imbalances have devastated our industrial base and put our national security at risk. I don't blame these other countries at all for this calamity. I blame former presidents and past leaders who weren't doing their job. They let it happen, and they let it happen to an extent that nobody can even believe. That's why, effective at midnight, we will impose a 25% tariff on all foreign-made automobiles.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, Africans. I hope you're faring well where you are, and if you ain't faring well, please do fine where you are. You see, they say that do not bite the fingers that feed you. If you bite the fingers that feed you, you start licking the boots that kick you. That is one word which was said by a very prominent scholar. And I think he said this after studying some of the human actions. Because there's a theory also called choice theory. It tries to tell us that you cannot control anyone's behavior. The only person's behavior you can control is yours. That's choice theory. And for today's video, we want to take a look at consequences and why consequences are always after actions have been made, you know. Sometimes we do actions as we know that we will be met with the consequences. we may not know or we may not fully apprehend the weight of the consequence, such as the one which Trump had placed on the European Union. You know, Trump had placed tariffs. Tariffs is like, think of it as a tax, an extra tax for trading, or if you want to sell your products in another country, or if they want to sell in your country, you pay something extra, which is not a normal standard. That is how I would simplify tariffs. So Trump had placed tariffs on products in Europe, you know. And so we have an organization in Europe called the European Union. Many of European countries, particularly many of the West Europe countries, are members of this specific group called the EU, European Union. And so these tariffs is really taking them bad. And their leader, who is a woman as well, has sent a warning back to Trump. She is telling Trump that you, Trump, you're going to face the consequences of placing tariffs, placing extra taxes on Europe and the European Union in itself. So she made a speech warning Trump that there's a limit to power. And once you cross that limit, you will be met with the consequences. And so here is where we have an instance of choice theory. The only person's behavior you can control is yours. Trump would only control his behaviors. He wouldn't control the behavior of the European Union. Now I want us to listen to this woman, listen to her powerful speech. I shall get back with a deep, critical analysis. Let's dive in.
I would like to focus on the threats to global prosperity and stability, thus our competitiveness, and the rise of protectionism. And as our domestic agenda cannot be seen separately from global developments around us, let me start with the US tariffs. When the dream of a united Europe began, it started with a very simple idea. Let's create one single market. Let's break barriers, take tariffs down. That is what made us strong. Because our companies grew, and so did the ties that bind us together. And then in the same spirit, we worked with partners across the world, including the United States. We built strong connections that we believed were unbreakable. And trade brought more than prosperity. It brought the idea of a shared way of life. And with commerce, our partnership has also grown. Countless are the friendships across the Atlantic. And because of this collective experience of the last, almost 75 years, so many Europeans feel utterly disheartened by the announcement from the United States. Let me be clear, Europe did not start this confrontation. We think it is wrong. But my message to you today is that we have everything we need to protect our people and our prosperity. We have the largest single market in the world. We have the strength to negotiate. We have the power to push back. And the people of Europe should know that together we will always promote and defend our interests and our values, and together we will always stand up for our Europe. So far, the US administration has announced a 25% increase of tariffs on imports of steel and aluminium, cars and car parts. The next sectors facing tariffs will be semiconductors, pharmaceuticals and timber. And tomorrow we expect another announcement with so-called reciprocal tariffs that will immediately apply to almost all goods and many countries in the world. Of course, there are severe issues in the world of trade, without any question. Overcapacities, we know about the imbalances, we see unfair subsidies, denial of market access, or the IP theft. And I hear Americans when they say some others have taken advantage of the rules. I agree. We also suffer from it. So let's work on it. But tariffs across the board make things worse, not better. Tariffs are taxes that will be paid by the people. Tariffs are taxes for the Americans on their groceries and their medication. Tariffs will just fuel inflation, exactly the opposite of what we wanted to achieve. American factories will pay more for components that are produced in Europe. This will cost jobs. It will create a bureaucratic monster of new customs procedures. And today, nobody needs that, neither in the United States nor in Europe. So, our strategy builds on 3 pillars. First, we are open to negotiations. We will approach these negotiations from a position of strength. Europe holds a lot of cards, from trade to technology to the size of our market. But this strength is also built on our readiness to take firm countermeasures if necessary. All instruments are on the table. Second, we will keep diversifying our trade with other partners. You mentioned it, Antonio. Our hallmark is not only that we are the biggest market in the world, but that we are reliable and predictable. We honor our commitments. And that is exactly what our partners are looking for today. And my third point, we will double down on our single market. The single market is the cornerstone of European integration and values. It's our powerful catalyst for growth, for prosperity, for solidarity. But we have to tear down remaining barriers to have a single market to go big, because scale matters, and a single market to go fast and to go far. Now to the first point. Our immediate response to tariffs is unity and determination. I have already been in contact with our heads of state and government on the next steps. We have this parliamentary debate now here today, and we will assess tomorrow the announcements very carefully to calibrate our response. Our objective is a negotiated solution. But of course, if need be, we will protect our interests, our people and our companies. And I want to be very clear on the aim of our response. We think that this confrontation is in no one's interest. The flow of goods and services between us, the United States and Europe, is nearly balanced. Of course, we are willing to work on the trade balance of goods as well as on the trade balance of services. This is the largest and most prosperous trade relation worldwide. We would all be better off if we could find a constructive solution. At the same time, it also has to be clear. Europe has not started this confrontation. We do not necessarily want to retaliate. But if it is necessary, we have a strong plan to retaliate, and we will use it. The second element of our strategy is diversification. Trade goes to where the business case is. We will open doors towards fast-growing markets across the world. Europe already has trade agreements in place with 76 countries, and we are now growing this network. We just concluded trade deals with Mercosur, Mexico and Switzerland. We launched the first ever clean trade and investment partnership with South Africa. We aim to conclude a trade agreement with India by the end of this year. We are in intense negotiations with Indonesia and Thailand. And later this week, President Costa and I will head to Samarkand for the first ever summit between the European Union and Central Asia. Europe has always been a trading continent. So let's connect with the beating hearts of the global economy. Our message is clear. Europe is reliable, Europe is predictable, and Europe is open for business. And the third point, honourable members, is unchain the single market. There are too many obstacles that tie down our businesses, and we have to do our homework. Mario Draghi is right when he says, high internal barriers are far more damaging for growth than any tariff. End of quote. The single market, as I said, was born to tear down barriers between the countries, to erase customs and duties, and to make business inside the European Union as easy as possible. So we must go back to that idea and fulfill it. It must be easier for SMEs to sell the same product in all member states instead of relabeling it 27 times to comply with national laws. It must be easier for professionals to work across borders instead of getting stuck with different national bureaucracies. It must be easier for tech companies to launch a new service all across Europe instead of dealing with 27 different procedures. I know, honourable members, that the European Parliament has always worked hard to complete the single market. Now we have the generational opportunity to get it done. We have a strong consensus on the Draghi and Letta report among all of us. We have put ambitious proposals on the table, you know it, from the Savings and Investment Union, to ensure that people get a better return on their money, but also that the companies find the finances they need in Europe, to our omnibus simplification packages or our Union of Skills, and more will come, including the 28th legal regime for innovative companies. According to the IMF, Europe's internal market barriers, are equivalent to a tariff of 45% for manufacturing and 100% for services. This simply cannot be. This must change now. This is why I have tasked EVP Séjourné to come up with concrete and bold proposals next month to remove most of these barriers and prevent new ones. These reforms are long overdue, and now they have become more urgent than ever. We all know, in a stormy global economy, the single market is our safe harbour. It's now 30 years since Jacques Delors laid its first stone, so it's time to finish the job. Thank you very much, and long live Europe.
Thank you.
So what I read from here is a thing that is not really new. You know, there's never no new thing under the sun. Everything we experience today was experienced before. The problems we have today was a problem before, and the people before us found a solution, and somehow, in some way, if we follow up with the solutions they found, we can help ourselves with solving the problem we have today. That is because nothing is new under the sun, you know. So what I'm saying is that Trump is trying to colonize the whole global market. You know, he's trying to impose market rules. He's trying to impose economic amendments that he believes should be followed. You know, he's basing his whole presidency and his all tariff measures on United States of America supremacy. He believes that US is supreme enough to dictate to the whole world how to trade, you know. But I'm telling you, trading sometimes can be something which is very complex. It can be something which is multifaceted, you know, with a lot of variables. You can't really say what works between USA and Mexico will work between USA and the European Union. That might not work. You know, you placing tariffs on Mexico and your own country might succeed, but you placing tariffs between United States of America and the European Union will backfire. The European Union is not a single country. It's an organization of many countries, you know. And just to give you a glimpse of what these tariffs might do, here is something that I want you to understand. You see, tariffs will increase costs of finished goods and components used throughout US manufacturing, you know. This will be an immediate and huge hike in inflation. To fight inflation, the federal government will have to hike interest rates, which will be wonderful for the billionaires, but possibly take away the middle class. the billionaires, it will take away the middle class. When the hike goes up, the billionaires profit, the middle class will vanish into poverty. You see, inflation is so high that consumers will literally be taking debt for basic life necessities. And it continues to say, collapse in American government has actually begun. You see, tariffs is a problem. It is a problem that Trump is bringing upon himself, you know. It can't work that way. You can't impose your principle on another country or on other people. The way that USA has been treating Africa, I think is the same way that they want to treat Europe. They have not been treating Africans as equals. They've been treating us as lesser equal, you know. And so if you take a partner as lesser equal, and when they realize you take them for that, you yourself can be affected, you know. So, for instance, is the situation that happened between France and Niger. France was not taking Niger as an equal trade partner. It took Niger as its own colony. Who is a colony to you? A colony is like your child. It's like your subordinate. It's like your secretary. They are always below you, you know, because they are in your payroll. So it reached a time when the Nigerian government discovered that our relationship with France is making us lose, is making our people suffer more. Our people are not gaining nothing. They say they're fighting the Islamic terror groups, but that is not happening. The average Nigerian does not have electricity, but France is abundant in electricity. The product that gives them electricity is found in Niger. So it was whole just hypocrisy. You see, we need to have a balanced system where the other side gains, this other side gains. That is how I believe with my own personal mindset. And me talking in this video does not mean that I am any financial advisor. I ain't any financial advisor, but I'm speaking from what I have seen and from what I understand, or rather what I understood from the video itself. I believe tariffs are a killer to the economy. In fact, adding that 25% to the tariffs in the European Union is gonna have a ripple effect. The European Union will retaliate, and they will retaliate very hard. That woman has been humble, and there's a lot that she has exposed within her lines. You know, if you read between the lines, you get the message. Sometimes you need a clearer mind to see things. You know, an eloquence of speech sometimes is not clarity of thought. Someone might say a lot and a lot and a lot, but they hid something within their statements. It's upon an intelligent mind to go and mine those words, you know. The European Commissioner and the President, Ursula von der Leyen, is awesome, and she's inspiring. She is a dignified and statesman-like. This is such a contrast to the bellicosity and word salad of Trump. As a Canadian, I am delighted that we are going to ally ourselves with the EU. Our government has promised removal of internal barriers between our provinces and territories. This is a Canadian, and how close is Canada to US? And also, how close is Canada to Europe? You see, your neighbor, you are not in good terms with them, but then you want to go and impose the same thing that made you not to be in good terms with them on another people far away, miles away, across the ocean. The United States of America should stop looking at itself as the world superpower, as US supremacy. It won't work. It won't work in this system, in this time and age. Yeah. This is EFK Original Documentaries. If you like what I do, subscribe to the channel. I'll surely appreciate. And support me on Patreon. Give something on Patreon. I shall surely also appreciate. Super things, I appreciate as well. And see you in the next one.